If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and do so now. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. Seems every week I get a few people who message me telling me that they got unsubscribed without their permission. Also, be sure to give the video a like. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, white supremacy has been engaged in a protracted half-millennia-long war against Black people in the Americas. And that being the case, when you have an aggressor who's at war with you, pretty much the worst thing that you can do in the face of aggression is to show weakness, because that emboldens the aggressor. And it makes the aggressor think that you're easy pickings, because once they get away with being able to harm you once they get away with abusing you and you show weakness, well, now they're going to want to keep doing it all the time because they figure you're good for that. It's your place to be their doormat. It's your place to be their punching bag. Well, the white media is working with some compliant, cowardly Negroes to try to manufacture the narrative that, hey, see, Black folks, they may be causing problems in the streets, but there's a few Negroes who don't mind a little white supremacist attempts on their lives every now and then. See, the white media is trying to figure out if there's any more mileage left in that old broken down nag argument of the noble Negro who's willing to do some long suffering for the fate of Massa. Massa ain't so bad. Oh, you guys, y'all need to stop saying mean things about Massa. Massa's really good, folks. Well, that's what this Christian Cooper character did. You guys remember this guy, don't you? He's the LGBT individual who was in Central Park, told that racist white woman, Amy Cooper, to put her dog on a leash. Meanwhile, she's sitting here practically strangling the poor animal while she's denying and defying him. I'm not doing anything. And of course, she calls the police and says, there's this Black man threatening me. He's Black. This Black man's threatening me, because she figures those are the magic words. Now, she got her butt in a crack, and she's had some minor, very minor consequences, not that you would notice, but apparently that was too much for the white media, and it seems too much for Christian Cooper. From the very beginning, he was saying that, oh, she shouldn't lose her job, and really don't want to come down too harshly on her. Why? This could be an educational moment. Now, what does that tell you about him? What does that tell you about his moral compass? His moral compass is certainly broken. Whereas we understand that a discriminative anti-Black hate crime took place, well, Christian Cooper, he seems to think something different. And whereas we see an opportunity to go ahead and set a new normal, that the white supremacists should expect punishment, meaning jail time, for these kind of things, as far as he's concerned, he wants to set the exact opposite message. Well, we want to make sure that people understand that when you make an attempt on a Black person's life, we can't wait to forgive and forget. He's using this as an opportunity to try to win the adoration and appreciation of the dominant society. And like all Black people, he knows exactly what the fastest route is to white supremacist approval. Just lay down and be their doormat. In fact, the best way to get quickie approval from the dominant society is make sure that they attack you and tell them the whole time, pull a John Lewis. Oh, I forgave them cops while they was busy whooping my behind. Just go ahead and tell them the more violent they are towards you, the more you forgive them, that you don't hold it against them. Why? That lets them know, man, we got a good little boy here. Of course, he knows that people are going to be saying, wait a minute here. There's been a whole lot of this garbage going on. White people using 911 as a means to try to set Black people up to get killed. This woman needs to be punished. And what does this Cooper clown say? Well, what she's been through so far, this is enough of a deterrent to others. He doesn't exactly explain how he knows that. And he doesn't exactly qualify what's actually been done with her or how this is going to work. But, this is going to be a deterrent to everyone else. This is enough. This is sufficient. Really? So what that means is the next Black person who dies as a result of a 911 call from some white supremacist, I guess Christian Cooper then is the person who we can lay the blame on then, because he's assured us that what he's done is the right answer. This is going to be a deterrent. Well, what's the deterrent? Don't do anything. Don't do anything. Well, we're not going to do anything. That's going to be a deterrent. So now we know who to blame. the next time some black person is killed as a result of a racially based 911 call. But of course, the audience for his words were not black people at all. We weren't the audience for those words. It was a white audience that he was trying to reach, to let them know, hey, I don't mind risking my life just to have contact with these white supremacists. I don't mind. And I don't mind risking black people's lives too. I'm not going to cause you guys any trouble. See, when it comes to this character, this Christian Cooper individual, the white media doesn't mind giving him plenty of airtime because they know he's going to say the right thing. On the other hand, in the case of the father of the murdered Fort Worth woman, Tatiana Jefferson, they didn't want to give her father much time at all. As far as they were concerned, he was saying the wrong things. Since he's sitting here saying, I don't want no hug, I'll see you in hell, because he knew he didn't have much time on this earth. He was dying from COPD, and that being the case, he understood he wasn't going to live to see the trial. But as far as the white media was concerned, that's a bad Negro. We definitely don't. We don't want to be publicizing that. We're trying to use our media to condition these Negroes that when white people kill a black person, when they harm a black person, you're supposed to immediately forgive. And this guy, he's saying the wrong things. So let's move right along. And that's what this Cooper clown is doing. Oh, don't challenge the white supremacists. Don't ever take them on. Don't ever try to inflict consequences on them. Don't ever make them pay a price for harming or otherwise interfering with the free travel and expression of a black person. Just take their abuse, and you can claim that you're doing it on the basis of some moral higher ground. Isn't that the excuse du jour that the black bootlick likes to use? Well, I'm taking the higher ground. No, the reality is it's garden variety cowardice. It's a pathetic attempt to curry the favor of the dominant society because you know that they love nothing more than a Negro who takes their abuse with a smile and asks for more and excuses it and runs interference for them. They love that. Showing yourself to be a subservient, broken Negro. Nothing warms the heart of the white supremacists like a broken, subservient black male. Nothing warms their evil, crooked little hearts quite like that. Now, while Christian Cooper thought that he was currying the favor of the white powers that be, in reality, they're making a mockery of him. Literally. On my Twitter page, I posted that just yesterday, Rupert Murdoch's New York Post editorial board, the editorial board, not just some garden variety writer, but the whole editorial board, they wrote a column saying that the anti-black racist Amy Cooper was being overly punished. Why, she suffered enough, don't you know? And Christian Cooper shouldn't pursue any further action against her. Why, she's been put through enough. She has. The woman who tried to set this guy up to get killed. The woman who's telling racist lies on the phone to the police, filing false police reports. Who's breaking the law, not having her mangy mutt on his leash. She's been through enough. She's suffered enough. You ever hear them talk this way about a black person under any circumstances? Nowhere do they mention that all of this was Amy Cooper's fault. They don't blame her for the fact that this happened. This is all her doing. At no point does the New York Post tell the reader that she intentionally made a racially incendiary phone call to the police for the sake of attempting to get a black person harmed or killed. The New York Post leaves that out. Instead, Murdoch's propaganda mill takes her side and claims that the charges against her are beyond iffy. That's the words that they use. The case seems beyond iffy. Well, aren't there a number of similar 911 calls with similar inaccuracies? Well, that's the thing. This was not a matter of inaccuracy. This was an outright lie. She claimed the man was threatening her when he wasn't. But this is what you expect from the right-wing media. You know that these guys are going to be lying. That's their job. That's their stock and trade. They are comfort food for white supremacists. At no point, though, does it occur to anyone that, hey, are we going to sacrifice our credibility? They ain't worried about credibility. This is all about letting the dominant society know, hey, these niggers, you don't want them getting the idea that white people are supposed to get punished if they call themselves harming a black person. Don't want to set a bad precedent here. We need to hold the line on this one. At no time do they point out anything negative about her. Instead, it's a puff piece for a blatant, unrepentant anti-black racist. In fact, the piece goes to great lengths not to use the word false when describing her phone call. They only mention the word when talking about what she's being charged with, but the post itself pretends as if there's no video of the incident, as if there was a video, well, they didn't see it. They're going out of their way to pretend like, oh, video? What video? We never saw any video. They don't even mention the video in their editorial. They instead talk about it as if it was his word versus hers, and there's no evidence of the incident, and there's no way to know who's right, and she didn't mean no harm, and people are being too rough on her. That's the way it's reported. That's the way it's framed. And the Washington Post is not alone. You don't see anyone else in the white media saying, hey, 911 calls need to be criminalized with prison time. You don't see anyone in the white media breaking that line. Now, you would think with all the alleged different white media outlets out there, at least one would say, hey, isn't it time to start applying real penalties for this kind of thing? Instead, all of them are like, we need to focus on redemption and focus on forgiveness. And, well, maybe what she needs to learn about is implicit bias, treating the white supremacist as if they were the victim. And if the dim-witted Christian Cooper thought that he was going to garner the appreciation of the white media, he was wrong on that too. Because while the Post was fully supportive of the anti-black racist Amy Cooper, they called Christian Cooper, on the other hand, creepy. That's the word that they used to describe him, just being creepy. Now, they don't use any sort of pejoratives to describe the anti-black racist Amy Cooper. They do not use any sort of insults or pejoratives for her at all. And she's the criminal here. She's the lawbreaker here. She's the racist here. But they don't call her anything at all. But they do call him creepy. That's his reward for deciding that he's going to be an intentional doormat for white supremacy. That's what they're letting him know. Good. If you're going to be our punching bag, we're going to go ahead and start swinging from Kansas then. So they don't call the blatantly racist white woman a racist. They don't call her creepy for deliberately making fraudulent 911 calls and for telling bald-faced lies when someone tells her to obey the law, and that she deliberately tries to make her phone call into a racist screed. She's deliberately playing on what she hopes will be a racist on the other side of that phone line. They don't call that creepy. Apparently, the New York Post is fine with that, as is the rest of the white media. And they did this in an editorial where they were agreeing with this fool. They were agreeing with him that she's been through enough. They were agreeing with him, but they are so racist, so psychopathic with their anti-black hatred, they couldn't even agree with him without insulting him. He does something that this white supremacist rag agrees with, and they call him creepy for it. That's how they reward him doing something that they agree with. We agree with you, you creep. He goes out of his way against public opinion and certainly against black opinion to give a pass to a racist who deliberately lied on him for the sake of trying to get him killed, and the New York Post attacks him while all but praising the racist in question. And this is how the New York Post editorial board, that's the editorial board who wrote this. This wasn't some hired gun columnist who they already knew that they could rely on to spew the right lies. This is the position of the paper itself coming directly from its staff. This is how Christian Cooper was rewarded for his feckless bootlickery. They don't give him any phony compliments or insincere praise. They hit him with scorn and insults. You want to know why? Because he showed weakness in the face of white supremacist aggression. This is a time for strength from all of us. This is a time for zero tolerance. This is a time to, as I've been telling you for months now, it's time to start bullying white supremacy. This is the time to show strength. You show weakness to white supremacy, they're not going to look and go, okay, we got ourselves a nice sucker here, let's leave him alone. They're like, hell no, now we know we can kick you around anytime we want. And that's when the real disrespect and the real abuse begins, when you show them that you're good for it. You see, that's the reason why you didn't see me going overboard or doing anything really in defense of this Christian Cooper guy, because it's a matter with these clowns, you got to stop and wait and see, is this person going to actually speak like they got some sense, or is this just another Negro who's trying to figure out how they can get some interracial sexual access or otherwise get a pat on the head from the dominant society? You got to wait and see. You can't jump the gun. And in this guy's case, it was obvious from the jump that this guy's mind was on something else entirely. And his white media buddies that he thought were going to give him a pat on the back and that they were going to wink and a nod and, okay, you covered for us. We like that. So, we'll let you hang around a little bit. Instead, they said, hell no, nigger. Here's a slap in the face, you creep. This is what happens when you show weakness and stupidity in the face of white supremacist aggression. They're not going to leave you alone. You make it where now they more eagerly come after you. You don't stand up for yourself, then they're going to knock you over. And I'll explain later why this Christian Cooper chump didn't do this out of some sense of pity for her, by the way. Black people always try to use fake claims of fake piety and phony moral high ground talk to cover up for when they're just too cowardly and scared and spineless to do what's right. Hey, don't want to fight white supremacy? Just claim that Jesus said to turn the other cheek, etc., etc. There's no way to get along with white supremacy. And to stop its attacks against you, you're not going to do that short of fighting it. But, safety and survival, these are things that matter to you and me. Clearly, they mean nothing to Christian Cooper. There is no decency, no honor in showing weakness in the face of white supremacy. You cannot get white supremacy to appreciate you because their goal is to destroy you. To attempt to appease the worst evil the world's ever known into liking you, that's something that only a reprobate would want. But this is what this clown's trying to do. I say try because this sniveling stunt never works. No matter how many times these Negroes call themselves saying, oh, I forgive, and I'm sure they meant no harm. No matter how many times they tried, it doesn't work. White supremacy loves nothing more than a cruel joke. The meaner, the better. White supremacy loves having some bootlicking Negro who sits there and takes their abuse and argues with the other black folks about how you ain't gonna do nothing to massa, I won't let you. They love having a dumb Negro bootlick like that and then having the bootlick and knocking him around, kicking him around and throwing him into a freaking wood chipper later on. They love that mess. They love it. You see, the black people who actually stand up to white supremacy, they expect that white supremacy is going to try to destroy them. So destroying them doesn't really give the same thrill for white supremacy. You don't get the same giddy joy out of it because these guys expected it. Oh, but that boot-licking, scum-sucking, bowing and scraping, scratching and shuffling Bojangles Negro like Christian Cooper, a clown like him, well, that's a real thrill. Yeah, that's the rush to take someone like him because he's sitting there going, but not me, just before you throw his behind under the bus. Oh, white supremacy loves to get a chuckle out of that. Oh, he actually thought that he was on the team. Did you see the look on his face? He never even saw it coming. That's white supremacy loves that stuff. They love mean jokes, especially jokes that take a long time to pay off. White supremacy is impatient about a lot of things. White supremacy believes in instant gratification on a lot of things. But when it comes to cruel jokes, white supremacy shows you how sadistic it is. It can wait for that. In fact, the longer the wait, the more delicious. As long as they know the payoff is guaranteed, they'll wait for the payoff. And by the way, I've got to say this because it needs to be said. While there are a number of black folks in New York who have their heads on straight, the sad truth is there's a disproportionate number of New York Negroes who are on some next level cooning. That's all. I can't put it no other way. The freaking boot-licking behavior in New York is on some next level stuff. It's like, God dang, is there like some sort of informal competition going on among a certain class of Negroes in New York where they're just trying to figure out which one of them can take the worst amount of abuse and then turn right around and excuse the white supremacist assailant in question? Is there like some sort of informal contest going on to see which one of them can be the most outrageous bootlick, the most outrageous apologist for white supremacy? There must be, because that's the only logical explanation for this. Too many times we see white supremacist attacks on black people in New York, and faster than you can say bootlick, those same black people are running to find a camera so that they can say, forgive, forgive, forgive. Well, this person ain't so bad. We can't be so harsh on them. Oh, we got to be better than that. We can try to redeem them. But as I keep telling you, cooning's a career path that doesn't come with a retirement plan. Nothing pleases white supremacy more than to take some pet Negro and throw him under the bus. And please stop saying that these clowns are hoping to get some money. While that may be true under some circumstances, you should not be using that as a catch-all term all the time whenever this mess happens. Yes, there are, of course, Negroes who would love to get white supremacy to cut them a check if they can manage it. But the problem is, in too many of these cases, it is excruciatingly clear that these sniveling, bootlicking Negroes are not looking for money at all. They're covering for white supremacy for free. That may be difficult for those of you who live in the B1 life to understand. When your entire ethos is centered around power, wealth, and influence, you're looking and going, God dang it, I ain't doing nothing for free. Yeah, but the thing is, you're living B1, not bootlick. And for these sniveling, groveling scumbags, as far as they're concerned, the reward doesn't have to be money. As long as Massa gives them a pat on the head, psychic benefits, I've taught you, are oftentimes more valuable than monetary benefits. Because for the bootlick, their main goal is to get close to Massa. And if Massa gives them a choice between the bag and hopefully something resembling access, they'll sit there and bootlick and coon for free. Bootlicks don't need a check or even the promise of a check to carry water for white supremacy. As long as they get some white supremacists to smile at them, that's enough for most of them. Some Negroes will gladly invite and embolden white supremacist violence because they don't see themselves as black. They see themselves as white people with very dark skin. That's what they see when they look in the mirror. They don't identify with the black collective. They identify with the white supremacist who they desperately, pathetically wish they could be. Now, another profiling cowardice comes from Livonia, Michigan. After Jason Black put up his 3 billboards in New York last week, one of which called for racially based 911 calls to be a hate crime and resulted in Amy Cooper being charged a few days later, there was another group who decided to put up an electronic billboard of their own, paid for in an allegedly activist group in Livonia, Michigan. Their goal was to bring awareness to racial profiling by the police in Livonia, Michigan. Now, on the surface, to some of you, this may have seemed fine, as if these individuals were aligned with us. Hey, they weren't officially aligned. They weren't officially, part of what we're doing. But the point is, it seems as if it's the same thing we're doing, right? Wrong. And some of y'all were already basically giving these guys the thumbs up without actually examining what the hell it was you were giving your approval to. You didn't bother to see if these people are on our side or not. Family, I have always taught you that whenever somebody calls themselves trying to act like they speak for the black community, the very first thing you're supposed to do is to consider the source. Is this somebody who we know? Who are their people? Do we know who this is? Do we know anything about them? If you did, you would have seen that even though the white media tries to make it seem like it's a black woman behind all this, there's actually a white woman who is very closely involved. And when you look at this group's Facebook page, the first thing that you notice is these guys don't say anything about the police at all. You read the copy on this Facebook page, and it reads like it was written by a non-black person. Some non-black person attempting to be an ally because it speaks about black people in the second person. Here we are talking about caring about black lives. This is not the time for no goddamn Valentines. And the description is, I stand with you. I stand next you. And that's another thing. This Facebook page from this Livonia group, it is riddled with a whole bunch of typos and grammatical errors. I'm sitting here going, man, you must have been drunk when y'all were sitting in the bar coming up with this crap. You couldn't even be bothered to spell check, I see. But that's the thing. This reads like amateur hour coming from some white ally, because that's how it reads. It reads like somebody's talking to the black community. saying stuff like, I'm starting this group for like-minded people who want to show their love and support for our Black brothers and sisters. They're not saying, this is not sounding like it came from a Black person. It sounds like it came from a white one. And you already know where the heck this is going. You see, although this Facebook page is, according to the white media, supposed to be about raising money for a billboard to raise awareness about racial profiling by the Livonia police, when you read the Facebook page description, the police are never mentioned. I'll read the whole goddamn thing to you. I stand with you. I stand next you. I'm starting this group for like-minded people who want to show their love and support for our Black brothers and sisters, also for other races affected by this disgusting show of force and racism. Yep, all lives matter after all. I have seen movements and protests all over the Metro Detroit area, and I personally want to show everyone how the people of Livonia can come together and show our love and support in this terrible time. This, and then in all caps, to let you know this is what this is really about. This will be a peaceful protest. If you are here to start problems, please kindly leave. If you are here, HEAR, to throw accusations or use offensive language, please leave. If you are here to disagree with this movement, please leave. If you want to help with signs and building up supporters, please chime in. I cannot wait to get this started. See that? You see what this is about? Talking about our brothers, Black brothers and sisters, also for other races affected by this disgusting blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you want to make sure that we include everyone else, because if Black people are supposed to be benefited by something, well, you got to make sure that everybody else is included too. We're going to shoehorn everybody else in, whether they're affected or not. Now, whoever it was who wrote this bile, they decided that they didn't have anything to say about the police. How the hell is it supposed to be about raising money in order to raise awareness of racial profiling by the Livonia police, and they don't even mention the police? This is supposed to be their freaking Facebook group, and they can't mention the police in their own Facebook group when this is apparently supposed to be, to hear the white media tell it, the reason why they're doing this. While this Livonia anti-racism group didn't have one solitary word to say about the police, couldn't even mention the police on their own Facebook page, they had lots to say about the protesters, you'll notice. Namely, they want only well-behaved protesters. Now, this is already playing into anti-Black protesting dogma. This is already playing into an anti-protest line. That's exactly, they're supposed to be standing with Black people, and yet they're already playing to the idea of, oh, these Negroes are so out of control. Don't have anything to say about the police, but you got lots to say about these imaginary rowdy protesters. Oh, and by the way, you better not disagree with them. They spend most of the copy on their own Facebook page lecturing imaginary rowdy protesters. But you notice that they don't lecture the police. They don't have any, whoever this white person was who wrote this, they don't have any lectures for the police, who apparently, to hear them tell it, are the entire reason that they were doing this in the first place. The entire reason that this Livonia Citizens Caring About Black Lives group even exists is because of police racial profiling of Black people, and yet no lectures for the cops. Not lecturing the cops about how you need to be law-abiding and respect people. And the cops, if the police want to create problems, you need to leave. If the police want to throw accusations or use offensive language, they need to be fired. If the police want to disagree with what the public says is proper law enforcement, please leave. See, they're not writing that on their Facebook page. Nothing about the police. That gives the police a pass, because they didn't say anything about the police on their billboard either. Oh, and on a side note, the crowdfunding that this group did, their goal was to raise $1,800, and they got a little over $2,000, very little over $2,000. But of course, this isn't about one billboard. I hope that you understand that. This is about manufacturing a launch pad for themselves, for this white front group that they can use to get more money in the name of caring about Black people and other groups affected by the disgusting show of force and racism. Yeah, we're caring about Black people and other races affected. This is the typical left-wing white supremacist hustle, trying to finesse themselves some money, all in the name of helping Black people. That's what this is, the same old con. And no, it was no coincidence that this comes about at the same time that we're doing this. Because what's happening here with this group in Livonia, this phony group, which to me is clearly a left-wing white supremacist sock puppet organization. It suits the white media's agenda because once this do-nothing Livonia group got their billboard money, they put up a billboard that doesn't mention the police. And even if you want to go with the line that, well, these billboard companies are white-owned and they probably wouldn't let them mention the police by name, there's still no excuse for not mentioning punishment. Well, that is, if punishment is what you're interested in. But of course, that wasn't the point of this little exercise in finessing some cash out of the online rubes, as their own Facebook page says. This is about awareness of racial profiling, awareness. It's not about actually doing anything about it. This is about awareness. Yeah, because nobody would know that the police racially profile in one of the most notoriously racist towns in the state if you didn't tell them. And I'm sorry for those of you who jumped the gun and thought that this was probably the spreading of an otherwise laudable effort. Those who thought that maybe these people were taking their cues from us and that what we were doing, basically if it copies what we're doing, then it's otherwise valid and useful. I'm sorry if you went for that. You see, a billboard like this isn't useful because it doesn't prompt people to do anything. We're trying to get people away from that whole garbage about, well, we need awareness and it needs to be a focus on reform. And no, there needs to be a focus on punishing. Full stop. We ain't looking for no awareness. We're not looking to talk any babbling gibberish about implicit bias. We're not here to do any do-nothing proposals about sensitivity training, or maybe these guys maybe there needs to be some sort of reform. The best reform for the police would be a long prison sentence. That's the only reform they need. You got a do-nothing statement that pretends to be about something when in reality it's about absolutely nothing. All this is meant to do is to lay the groundwork for this white sock puppet group's next billboard or whatever other pathetic scheme they cook up, which, by the way, will demand a lot more money. Oh, this one was wanting $1,800. Their next one's going to be a hell of a lot more than that. They use this as a chance, as a way to get themselves some publicity from the white media and hopefully get their names on the map. This is typical left-wing white supremacist hustling for dollars 101. This is how they do it. You do something small, something that's not going to cost you any money, something that's not going to hurt you, so that you can get them, so you have an excuse for the white media to come sniffing. You can go ahead and tell the white media, hey, come cover what we're doing, come cover what we're doing. And once you're on TV, or once the white media covers you on a few outlets, preferably some nationwide coverage, then all of a sudden you're a brand name. Your name's got a little bit of cachet. You've gone from being nobodies to somebodies overnight. And all of it for something that absolutely means the opposite of what people think it actually means. This is about getting publicity for their little group, which they think is going to enhance their fundraising, because that's what the real goal here is. They're not actually going to do anything. Black people know the rules of racism. I don't care if they got some black front person out there. Black folks, they know the rules of racism. They know how to not ruffle the feathers of some casual racist, read white moderate. They know that even so-called white liberals, they are just as hypersensitive to anything that looks like a black person exerting control over a white person. If you're a black person calling yourself punishing or otherwise inflicting consequences on a white person, look what happened in Texas. Greg Abbott sends out an order to the whole state saying, ain't going to be nobody's businesses open, no beauty parlors or anything. But all it took was the image of a black judge punishing a white woman. And you have the governor say, I am reversing my own executive order. The lieutenant governor said, now I'm going to pay whatever court cost she's got, whatever fine she's got. And you got the governor saying, let's open up the whole freaking state. I'm reversing my own order. And now you look at Texas today. Bright idea, wasn't it? So the lesson that every black person understands inherently is if you call yourself trying to punish a white person who has committed some act of anti-black racism, your white leftist liberal pal will all of a sudden reveal themselves to be a closet conservative, at least where the subject of black people calling themselves inflicting consequences on a white supremacist is concerned. So what black people will do is when they're in the presence of people from the dominant society, they'll dance around the issue. You never speak too directly about white supremacy or some wrongdoing that a white person has done against a black person. You don't talk too directly about that. You always tiptoe around the point. You never come up the middle. You use oblique language, and you never call for punishment. You don't ever do that. You don't make it seem like as black people, we demand that if somebody who comes from the dominant society harms us, that we have the right to see them punished to our satisfaction. Oh, no, forgive. They just need retraining or something. They just need a little bit of a couple of pamphlets about implicit bias. You instead stick to what you know these low-key white supremacists tell you to do. What they say is the appropriate response. You talk some empty gibberish about sensitivity training and implicit bias and other meaningless terms. Black people know that this is inaction. They know that this is the wrong thing to do, but they also know that the casual racist will smile in their faces and the codependent black bootlick gets to feel smart by having these left-wing white supremacists pat them on the back for using some made-up, ridiculous-sounding words, which are nothing more than a fancy way of saying don't punish the white supremacists for harming black people. You see, the members of the dominant society, they understand how to, as Steve Bannon put it, separate the signal from the noise. They understand how to do that. You got a black person who's sitting here talking some mamby-pamby, empty gibberish that clearly shows that they're looking for a white supremacist to be their friend. They're like, okay, you ain't going to be a problem for us. On the other hand, you got some black folks talking about punishment, prison time, make this a hate crime, talking about what should be done to punish white supremacist anti-black violence. Okay, that's a problem. You don't need to be talking like that. They'll tell you real quick, we got to get you off of that. You're going to lose white allies, you see. So there you got it, family. Christian Cooper isn't the only black person out there eager to willingly embolden white supremacist attacks on us. A billboard is meaningless without a call to action. Awareness alone, that's a non-event. Okay, you told people there's racial profiling, but you didn't say by whom. And even if they correctly guess that it's the police, you didn't say what to do about it, or even that action needs to be taken. You haven't even said that anything needs to be done, much less what to do about it. So you got people on the street, they're going to be passing by as they read an advisory that black people are being racially harassed. And I guess what they should conclude from that is try to lay low, because it doesn't say to do anything else. Family, you need to learn to recognize controlled opposition when you see it. Some group comes out of nowhere who you never heard of. You don't know who's in this group. You don't know what they're about. You have no track record to examine. They don't challenge white supremacy or even use the term white supremacy. They don't tell you who it is that they're opposing, just some empty talk about caring about black people and other races who are affected. How the hell do you not have all red flags going up? How the hell do you not look at that and see the scam from the jump? I believe in message amplification as much as the next person, But you don't have to be affiliated with the black media or be one in order to be helpful to our cause. But that's the problem here. When established power is up against a movement that has successfully seized the initiative and defined the terms of the discourse and has captured the public mind, power knows that it would be useless to argue against the newcomers, these up and comers under these circumstances. The public has been swayed, and it would simply be too difficult to try to push directly against that. So power instead tries to use a judo move, try to take the momentum that's been built up by the opposition and redirect it. You can't stop the momentum head on, so don't try. Instead, try to find a way to move it in a different direction, divert it. And that's where you use Trojan horses. You start off with a message that seems to be in agreement with the opposition, so that the people who are listening to your opponent, they're hearing this message from you and thinking, oh, this is the same thing, isn't it? Okay, I can trust this. And once you got them nodding their heads and going, okay, that's what you say here, this billboard that just says some vague, empty talk about racial profiling in Livonia, that seems to make sense. You let their imaginations fill in the blanks, because you didn't say anything about the police, but hopefully they will intuit something about that. And once you've got their noses open, they go to your Facebook page, and what they see is this is about all other races of people. And they see that you're lecturing anyone who takes the hard line against white supremacist violence, and you're not saying anything about the police. Oh, but there is a link to the crowdfunding page that you do have. A message that on the surface seems to be in agreement with what people want, but diverts them, that is not helping us. But before long, though, you're going to have everybody no longer demanding punishment or even thinking about it. Instead, they'll be settling for the same old empty rhetoric about retraining and implicit bias, etc., ad nauseum. You know, there's a whole lot of black folks who are just so desperate to be liked by these white supremacists that they'll actually go along with a sellout like this. To them, these white supremacists are potential sexual access, or at least a member of the dominant society who they can hopefully become buddies with. Hey, the bootlick is not above being friend zoned. They'll settle for that if they have to. And most of the time, that's all they get. What they get is the lackey zone. You don't get to be in the friend zone. You get to be in the sidekick zone, and there's plenty of kicks coming. Even in the case of Christian Cooper, he's a homosexual, but the very fact that the person who tried to have him killed has the same last name, no doubt made his heart go pitter-pat. Far as he's concerned, this is a win for him. Haven't I always taught you about that? White supremacy has two forms of rewarding or incentivizing those who it wants to co-opt. It shows up with some money, but most of the time it doesn't have to do that. White supremacy will show up with some psychic benefits. Lyndon Johnson talked about that in the 60s. You go ahead and tell the poorest white man that he's better than the richest black man, and he'll give you every penny in his pocket. Psychic benefits go a long way under white supremacy. Far as Christian Cooper is concerned, he's gone from being an anonymous nobody bird watcher to a well-known black face in New York. And while he doesn't want sexual access from Amy Cooper, he no doubt now figures that he'll have a lot of sexual access from white male members of the dominant society. He places his sexuality at the top of his list of priorities. All he can think about is how every LGBT in the city, well, every white LGBT in the city is going to know him. Or if they don't recognize him off top, at least if he introduces himself, he'll have a familiar face and he'll have an interesting story to tell. And for him, that's more than enough. He literally is endangering his own life, and he is encouraging racist attempts on the lives of millions of black people, all so he can try to use this moment of media exposure to boost his dating pool chances. I guess Tinder and Plenty of Fish weren't doing it for him, huh? You see, to him, Amy Cooper did him a favor. That's how he sees it. Why, if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't be in the place that he's in right now, where you got all of these potential bedroom buddies. No doubt that he's thinking, oh, as far as he's concerned, he's just counting how many members from the dominant society he's going to be able to hop in the sack with. That's what he's thinking about right now. See, we think about how many black people get harmed or killed as a result of people like Amy Cooper, and the only calculation that Christian Cooper is doing is how many potential white bedmates he can get out of all this. Oh, to him, Amy Cooper did him a solid one. She did him a favor. What the hell's he got to be mad at her about? Man, this is the best thing to happen to him in a long time, probably ever. As he sees it, if she gets in trouble, then he goes from being the friendly black LGBT who just wants some white bedfellow to being a black radical, a black troublemaker. How many white people would want to jump in the sack with that, huh? So you see what's most important to this guy, and it's not survival. This is why it's so dangerous to allow the white media to start shoehorning other groups' interests into our struggle. Why it's unacceptable to allow the message of Black Lives Matters to morph into Black Trans Lives Matters or Black Feminist Matter or what have you. You see, the agenda of these other groups, their agenda is not ours. Our goal is to be free from white supremacist attacks. Their goal is to get sexual access from as many non-Black people as possible, even if they're blatant white supremacists. Remember, Milo Snuffleupagus openly brags that his partner is Black. We know that Milo Snuffleupagus is a lifelong white supremacist. I don't know, maybe Christian Cooper is auditioning to be Milo's next bussy buddy. I don't know. But one thing I do know, when you run around showing weakness in the face of white supremacy, you don't just make a target out of yourself or out of the Black people in your immediate area. You make a target out of all Black people, because the white media loves to run with that. That's the narrative they want to push. This is the way that Black people are supposed to respond to white supremacist violence and aggression. You're supposed to respond with bowing down and being meek and deferential and excusing it away, and you don't hold any grudge, and you're fine with it. Why? You're not upset about it at all. That's what this is meant to do, to condition Black people to give the wrong response to white supremacist aggression. So family, you be real careful before you let the white media call itself encouraging you to take up for someone. See, we can go ahead and make it a point that Amy Cooper needs to be held up as a poster child for why it is that these racially based 911 calls must be punished harshly. But as far as Christian Cooper is concerned, this guy's playing with fire and he's going to get burned. You see, we can go ahead and oppose the white supremacists without calling ourselves supporting some Black flunky who clearly has other things to do with his time than to ensure his survival. People who run around making targets out of us by encouraging white supremacist attacks and white supremacist aggression, these people are not with us and we're not with them. And speaking of not with them, when you have white sock puppet groups who are trying to figure out a way to copy what we're doing, you got to stay vigilant, man. You got to stay vigilant as hell. The white supremacists, the dominant society in general, takes its cues from Black people. We got the pulse. Our culture is vibrant. Theirs is not. And that being the case, when it comes to everything from music to art to dance to entertainment to political movements, they watch us because we got the pulse. They don't. They watch us to see where to get cues from, what trends to follow, what they can get relevant ideas from. And that's where you get this Livonia group from. See, there's going to be a lot of people trying to copycat what we do. And before you go calling yourself going, oh, this is some person who's doing something similar to us. Well, first of all, is this somebody who has had any contact with us? Is this somebody who is actually on code? Or do you just look and see somebody taking out a billboard and you go, oh, a billboard, as long as you're doing something, just do it. That's good enough. No, we didn't say to just do anything. There's a difference between doing something and doing something useful. And when it comes to some sock puppet organization trying to finesse some cash off of our suffering, that is hella off code, hella wrong. That is white supremacy in the raw. So let's not go being gullible here. We can't afford it. This is the time for vigilance in the face of white supremacy. This is the time for strength in the face of white supremacy. This is the time to be confronting white supremacy.